What is going on out there, peeps? All right, going to start going back to Sarah. I spoke about it before. It's been a little while since I did this. For those of you who've been listening to me for a while, even from the other channel, you guys know my approach is way different than all the hokey pokey stuff that you hear from the other content creators. What I'm going to do is follow this list right here, because this is all that matters. I'm going to go down each one of these and see what I can and can't prove to see if any of these things are actually taking place. Now, I haven't done this in a couple of years, so there should be a lot of new information is what we're going to find out. I'm going to be focusing today on the abolish income taxes and abolish the IRS. That's the ones we want to look at since that's in the news a lot. Let's go ahead and get into this.
Jezara, and this is the huge thing, it cancels all debt. Debt is illegal. Charging interest on loans has been illegal. All debt is over. And people are waking up in America for the last month. Their student loans have gone. Their mortgages have gone. Any kind of bank debt, not personal debt, but any kind of bank debt, there will be a jubilee. If I follow a guy called Pimpy's Investment Chat, he's brilliant. He talks about the currencies and the bonds and all sorts of opportunities that are out there. But he woke up the other day and he's got a following of 50,000 people. He got up and he was like, my student loan's gone.
And that launched everything for me in the Sarah world. This is Jack Kidd along with Charlie Ward way back, and let's see here. The date's down there. What's that? 5/15/2020. Seems to me like it was older than that, but that's the date that's down there. Everybody knows the story that I was talking with April and AJ, and they were telling me about some things that were happening with the people listening to Santa surfing. And, they're saying that stuff dropped off their credit report. And, I went to go take a look, and sure enough, my student loans were gone. We're talking about $156,000 in student loans. Gone. Wiped out. Now, I don't trust credit reports, so what I did is I turned around and called the creditor and said, what's the story on this? Why is it zero? She said, it's paid off. Now, I didn't pay it. And I said, what do you mean it's paid off? She goes, it's your account. It says paid in full. And then I said, do we know who paid it? She goes, no, sir. All I know is that it's paid in full. There's nothing you owe. It's zero. Still to this day, I check my credit report from time to time and it's not there. It is paid in full. People are asking me, is that Sarah? I said, you know what? I don't know what it is. I don't know if you want to call it Sarah or Debt Jubilee or something weird just happened, or maybe I had a huge fan who decided he was just going to pay off my debt. Who knows? But I started making videos talking about these different subjects, but I just didn't get into all the hokey stories about, JFK Jr. still alive and all that kind of crap. I didn't get into that stuff. I just want to talk about the things that are most important to us, which are the items that are on that list. So let's go ahead and get into this.
Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said President Trump wants to abolish the IRS. Lutnick told Fox News the president wants instead to raise revenue by charging other countries. Trump himself has also floated the idea of abolishing federal income taxes as a part of his tariff and foreign nation tax plans.
One of Trump's campaign promises was eliminating the income tax as well as the IRS. Is that even possible? It depends on who it is you're talking to. All the Trump haters are going to say, no, it's impossible. He's just crazy. But then you call him crazy and say it's not possible. He's going to make it happen. There are already some things on the bill that he made a promise on his campaign about. No taxes on tips, no taxes on Social Security for the elderly, no taxes on overtime. For those people like police officers, they work so much overtime. Can you imagine? That's like having a whole nother check that you get without any taxes. This is going to help out a lot of people in the lower and middle income brackets. This is awesome, including the senior citizens. Anyways, this is Patrick Bet Davis. He's going to tackle that subject matter. And he's going to get into, is it even possible to eliminate income tax?
Did you know a little over 100 years ago, they tried to impose an income tax, and the Supreme Court came out and said, what are you talking about? This is completely unconstitutional. This is the Pollock versus Farmers. Pollock ends up winning. But then 20 years later, 1913, you know what we do? We announced the Federal Reserve, and we introduced the income tax. You know when? Exactly a year before World War I. Did we know something that was coming? Let's start collecting money before we go to war 1 year before. And then now it's a normal thing. There's this guy that's got this department called the Doge with another guy. Both of them are very smart, Vivek and Elon Musk. It's called the Department of Government Efficiency. Do you know when Elon Musk bought Twitter, he had 7,500 employees. Overnight, he fired half of them, 3,750. Of the 3,750 that got fired, they recruited another 1,250 to quit with them. So 7,500 became 2,500 very quickly. This guy's used to making things to be more efficient. What if that took place and it forced everybody like us to work in a free market? What if that were to happen? We're going to talk today about a plan on if there is a way for us to go back to zero income taxes. We're going to propose our plan. You get to tear it apart. but we're going to talk about that today. If you get value out of this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. By the way, did you know that the U.S. government collects roughly $4.7 trillion in gross taxes? 2023, $4.7 trillion, of which, do you know what percentage of those taxes is from tariffs that we get from other countries? You know what the number is? Only $80 billion. That's it. Now, this is
$80 billion in tariffs. That's what we get. That's on average. Look at this right here. Are Trump's tariffs making money? Watch this chart. As of 5/11/2025, ever since he started the tariff wars, he's already collected above $60 billion in tariffs. Now, what did Patrick Davis say? On average, we do what, $80 billion in tariffs? This is only May, and we're already around $70 billion.
This is why this is so weird. The $80 billion that we collect, if you go back and look at the history of America, where we got our income from to pay for everything, you know 100% of the money, the taxes that the U.S. government collected just a little over 100 years ago was from tariffs. If you look at this chart, it'll show you tariff revenue as a share of total federal receipts from 1798 to 2023. Go all the way back to 1798. Look at that. 100% of the revenue the U.S. government got was from tariffs. And every time you see a drop off, you see that one right, 1812, it drops off to 45% because they wanted to collect taxes from you and I. That's because of War of 1812, another crisis, another war. But even if you go all the way up to 1910, 50% of the U.S. revenue came from what? Tariffs. The other 50% was from excise taxes. So let me simplify this for you. How much money comes in from importing goods and services, right, from other countries? The number is $3.83 trillion in 2023. Of which the average tariff we get is around 2%. 2% equals to $80 billion. $80 billion is what other countries are paying, okay? 80 billion divided by the $4.7 trillion that the U.S. government collects taxes from you and I. 80 billion divided by 4.7 trillion. That means 99.83% of all taxes that the government is running on, you and I pay for. The countries out there that are saying, here's 340 million rich Americans to come and sell your products to, these countries are saying, holy shit, America, this is the best deal ever.
This is why when Trump said he wanted a level playing field, he was talking about trade. Come to find out there's countries that export into our country. They sell their goods here. They do it no problem. We don't give them no crap. We don't charge no tariffs. But here's the problem. We can't get into their markets. China, Japan, Germany, these are some of the markets that we cannot get into. So we allow them to come here and sell their goods, but they won't allow us to go into their country and sell our goods. So Trump said, we're not going to have that no more. I want a level playing field. You know what? If you're going to come in our countries and sell goods, then we should be able to go in your country and sell goods. If you don't let us, then we don't let you.
Only paying 0.017%? What? And just 150 years ago, 100% of the federal spending was coming from who? Tariffs. Why did we stop doing that? I don't know. So what if we charged, instead of the 2% to get the 80 billion, what if we said moving forward across the board is 25%? That's $1 trillion per 25%. 50% is another $2 trillion in income. That's money. And I can bring it down for you and I that we're buying stuff here so we can go back down to 0% taxes when it once used to be unconstitutional. According to the Supreme Court, to tax you and I, it was unconstitutional. Now you see the concern and the benefits of using tariffs. So this next chart is very important. Think about the amount of income the U.S. government gets. Okay, think about GDP. Here's what our GDP is. What percentage of the GDP did the U.S. government spend to exist? Okay, if you go back and look at this chart, the federal outlays as a share of GDP over time, in 1849, we only spent 2% of it. Whatever money came in, the government only spent 2% of it. Look at the number today. Today it's 37%. So if we got roughly, $27 trillion in GDP, 37% of the GDP, the federal outlay. Are you kidding me? No. That's a problem. We've gotten in the habit of just saying another program. It's okay. While we're in debt, how much money? No. We need to stop this.
That's what Trump is doing. That's where Doge came in. It's amazing how the media was able to use propaganda to lie to people and make them believe that Elon Musk was having access to our personal information and they were going to steal it, and that Elon Musk and Trump were stealing billions of dollars from the American people. It's all lies, you guys. You got to stop letting these people lie to you and mislead you. We don't need all these programs. The reason why the Democrats love growing government is because it gets so big that you can't really monitor where all the money is getting spent. And what are we learning from Doge? That there is a ton of fraud, a lot of fraud. And a lot of these Democrats benefit from this fraud. That's why they're in no hurry to fix it. As a matter of fact, some of the judges that are keeping Trump's immigration laws from happening, that are running interference, they are tied into a lot of this taxpayer-funded groups and stealing our taxpayer monies. Their wives are involved with USAID. Their kids are involved with USAID. So you understand why they're making Trump's life miserable as activist judges, because they all have their hand in the honey jar. Don't get me wrong. There are some GOP members as well, some RINO Republicans. All you got to do is watch Congress. Whenever you say to them, we found a way to save taxpayers' monies, and they're against it, they just lie. They go, this is going to kill kids. Bill Gates came on TV and said, these cuts by Trump has cost millions of lives, children's lives, because he cut the food programs. And then Elon Musk came on behind him and said, prove it. How do you prove it? You're just making all these accusations, but where is your proof that anybody is dying? Nobody is asking for proof. Just don't let them get away with this shit, you guys. They're standing against the American people and their money.
There is a way to figure out what you pay zero in income taxes. If we make the government more responsible, the way they make you and I, they force you and I to be more responsible or else. But not them. They missed the audit, the Pentagon 7 years. No. But we know what we're doing. You didn't pay $600. God forbid, we're going to come after you. Big difference. Percentage-wise, where's this money going to? Some people are not going to be happy, but we have to have this conversation. So 24% of the budget is for health insurance, 21% Social Security, 13% defense, 8% economic security, 7% benefits for veterans and federal retirees, 10% is the debt, 5% is education, 2% transportation, natural resources, agriculture, 1%, science, medical research, law enforcement, international, another 3%, then all other is 5%. So some of this stuff we have to cut. Some of this stuff we have to get somebody else to pay for, and you'll see how. So in other words, if you look at health insurance, 2023 was 24%, 1.6 trillion. If you look at Social Security, 21%, 1.4 trillion. If you look at defense, 820 billion. This is a lot of money that's being spent just with those three. Just those three combined is 57%. So here's what's important to think about. When we funded wars, every time we funded wars, the government will come and say, hey, people, guys, we need some money. Can we get some money from you guys? And we put some tiers of taxes, between this income and this income, 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%, and it will go to 7%. Nothing crazy is where it would go to. Then we'd say, okay, once we pay off the debt from this war, we'll stop doing taxes again. Okay, fine. And Americans trusted it. Lincoln, hey, we need some money for Civil War. How long are you going to do this, Lincoln? It's going to be 10 years. Okay, cool, let's do it. 3% income over $800. Couple other things that they put in there. 10 years later, income taxes is gone. Why? Because we paid off the war, right? So next war. We kept going through this. And this is when in 1894, the Pollock versus the farmers, like, hey, do we want to put taxes on income? No. It's unconstitutional. Okay, great. You're right. It's in the Constitution. It's unconstitutional. Sorry we brought this up. 20 years later, hey, man, 16th Amendment. What's that? We want to be able to tax your income. Are you serious? Yes, but it's small. Yeah, it's really introducing a gradual income tax with rates of 1 to 7% for people making over $500,000 a year. All right, okay, maybe we'll do this a little bit again because maybe there's a war going on because it's World War I. Yes.
But this is why we're constantly in perpetual wars. This is why these globalists, these new world order freaks, these so-called elite, keep America in wars. Notice that said 1 to 7% on people making over $500,000. How come the people making under $500,000 are still paying taxes?
But it's going to go away. Yeah, of course it's going to go away. No problem. All of a sudden, they didn't go away for 111 years. Now watch this. They looked at the World War I. They said, whoa, this time around, they weren't saying anything about it. Look at this stuff, the taxes. We need another war. If we have another war, what could happen? World War II takes place. Watch this. Go back to the chart, the outlay chart. What do you notice? 1930-39, 10% of GDP. But look at next year. World War II, 28%. And it stayed above that for God knows how long, and now at 37% and higher, because we officially accepted that it's okay to pay income taxes. So now they're like, wait a minute, if we can tax these guys, let's just see how much more we can collect. All of a sudden, like, dude, this is great. Use it. In 1939, only 4 million people filed taxes. Total revenue, $900 million. In 1943, just 4 years later, 41 million people filed taxes. More than 10 times. How much revenue? 13 billion. 2 years later, 43 million people filed taxes. The government all of a sudden raised $45 billion. And they sat there and they said, this is brilliant. They're no longer bitching about it, guys. They have accepted the fact that this country got started fighting taxes. They forgot about their own history. Look at this. This is awesome. Let's keep taxing them. What a great program. What's another program we can come up with?
Oh, they'll keep coming up with programs. We need USAID to help everybody from around the world. Then we find out that they're funding terrorist groups. They're arming them, and we're holding guns for them in the United States. Look at Stacey Abrams, started a nonprofit. Then all of a sudden, it wasn't even a full year it was open, and she got a grant for $2 billion to do what? Oh yeah, they're supposed to give new appliances to the poor people. Keep this in mind. They're supposed to give new appliances to poor people to help save on energy. But less than 48 refrigerators went out. So where do you think that money's going? It gets funneled through these organizations. Everybody takes their little cut out of there and right back to the politicians. So the politicians aren't going to pass any laws or eliminate anything on behalf of the taxpayers because they benefit from it. We got to put it into them being able to benefit or get kickbacks or donations, starting NGOs, but all of a sudden after they do public service, they retire and then all of a sudden a book comes out.
Dude, how about we do payroll taxes? That's genius. Payroll taxes. So you mean like their money is going to be taken out of their, before they get the check, they're paying payroll taxes? There's no way they're going to agree to that. Trust me, they will agree to it. There is no way. Dude, they're going to be okay with it. Do it. No joke. Yes. Alternative minimum tax, 1969. They'll be okay. At this point, they've accepted taxes.
See what it said? Alternative minimum tax, 1969. High income earners pay a minimum tax regardless of the deductions or credits. Is that happening? No. All levels of income, except for the poverty level, pay taxes. They take them out of everybody's payroll taxes, not just the people who make a lot of money, because this is what the politicians do. We're going to go after the rich. You always hear Bernie Sanders and them and Hillary Clinton. They need to pay their fair shares, but they never go after the rich people. They'll find a way to give them a loophole. They pay zero taxes. I mean, come on. When Trump ran against Hillary Clinton, if you remember there during that debate, what did she say? You should pay your fair share of taxes. He says, because I'm smart. I take advantage of the same tax breaks that your own donors take. If you really wanted to tax the rich, don't give them any kind of deductions. Make them pay a flat rate, no deductions. That's going after the rich. But they're not going to do that because they're in that category themselves now. You got politicians making millions of dollars like never before on people who have annual salary of $174,000. It's ridiculous. They're stealing all of our tax dollars and we're just letting it happen.
1969. They'll be okay. At this point, they've accepted taxes. They'll be okay. Just put it on. Tag on more. Go ahead. Do more. Keep doing it. They're not going to complain about it. They're going to figure this thing out. By the time they do, they're going to be in so much debt that they're going to accept the fact that they have to keep paying taxes. And that's today. Okay, so back to the question. How do we get rid of income taxes where you pay 0% taxes? Let's talk tariffs first. We already know that $4.7 trillion that we spend annually, we have to, one, either lower some of the spending, or two, we have to create some income, right? One of the two. Like if you want to change your life, either you need more income or you need to lower your expenditure so you have more discretionary income. Make sense? So the 4.7's got to come down and we got to increase some more revenue. Tariffs, right now it's only 80 billion. What if we made 25% across the board, no matter what country it is? That's crazy, Pat. What's crazy is we're in debt. And what's crazy is you and I would be cool to pay 0% income taxes if our government can get their act together. Per 25% tariffs across the board instead of 2%, we collect $1 trillion. That 4.7 officially became $3.7 trillion. Let's go to the next one. So now, you know how there's these apps called Mint that you can go out there and get them where you can kind of find out some of the things that you've been paying for the last 3.5 years that you never thought about you're paying for? You know what I'm talking about? The government does that, except they do it in the billions of dollars, right?
You mean like this? Unused phone lines. Of the 1,048 USOPM phone lines, 198, that's 19% of them, were either unused or duplicated. OPM canceled these links. Took 1 hour to get them all canceled. It resulted in $100,000 per year in savings. Something as simplistic as that. Since OPM is 0.1% of the federal government, this suggests that $100 million taxpayers' money is wasted on unused phone lines. Who is supposed to be paying attention to this shit? Who's supposed to be monitoring? People need to go to jail. Somebody should be taking care of this. They're going to put you in perpetual enslavement. And that's exactly what they're doing now. And Trump is trying to stop it.
And it's called overpayments, unknown payments, underpayments, technical improper payments, Wasted payments, we do this every year. Say, it's okay. We can afford this. The taxpayer, it's not a big deal. But you're paying for it, I'm paying for it, right? We're solving for 0% income taxes. Watch this. Let's go through this. Current waste per year, $400 billion a year. That's 25% spending on inefficiencies and fraud just in health insurance programs. And there's an estimated additional $200 to $300 billion due to inflated pricing of drugs, treatments, and administrative overhead. You combine those two together, that's another $650 billion. Social Security, another $3 billion of wasted payments. So that's now $653 billion.
Now, when he says wasted payments, he's not talking about dear old grandma or grandpa that get their little Social Security that's owed to them. That's not what he's talking about. Doge found shit ton of money that was going to people over 100 years old, checks that never got stopped. Nobody knows where the money went. And, hundreds of millions of dollars were going to illegal aliens who never even contributed. Thank God Trump's in office because he stopped all that.
Defense, another $123 billion of procurement inefficiencies and fraud. Add another $123 billion there. Then you have another price gouging in defense that could add another $50 to $100 billion per year. Let's say it's only $75 billion. That's $198 billion of wasted payments just for defense. Where are we at now? $851 billion. We just found another $1 trillion of wasted spending. Hello, that 4.7 with 25% tariff just went to 3.7. With this 850, went to 2.8, 2.9. Interesting. What else can we do? Let's continue. We got another one for you. In 2023, federal agencies alone made $236 billion in improper payments, okay? $175 billion was overpayments. That's 74% of it. Unknown payments, $45 billion. Underpayments, $11.5 billion. Technical improper payments, $4.6 billion. We just found another $236 billion. I think we're now at around 2.6, 2.5 trillion. Not bad. All right, this next one's going to be a little bit weird, so we have to negotiate in a creative way. Do you know how many personnel, U.S. military personnel we have around the world? It's roughly 168,571. So let's say 170,000, right? Of which country think has the most? Japan. In Japan, we have 53,246 personnel there, okay? Germany's got 35K. South Korea's got 24K. Italy's got 12. And United Kingdom's got 10,000. Now, why are we there? We're there partially because these countries want us to be there to feel protected and safe. Japan, protected from who? China. You got South Korea, protected from who? North Korea. Everybody is protected from somebody. They want United States presence there. However, who's paying for it? Why are we paying for it? Are we not giving you protection? If I ask 40 people to come and provide security for an event of mine, am I paying for them or are they paying for it? I mean, who's paying for what? I'm asking for protection. You want protection? Yes. Guess what? Why don't you pay for it? Matter of fact, we went and pulled up the number of how much U.S. has spent protecting Japan since 1945 till today. You know what that number is? Roughly $500 billion. Interesting. What country do we owe the most money to that they bought bonds with us? I think it's roughly 1.1 trillion. You know what it is? I think it's Japan. What if we go back to Japan and we say, hey, Japan.
This is what Trump's talking about. Why are we paying for their protection? We'll offer protection, but they have to pay for it.
You know, we're making payments to you of such and such amount. Guess what? We've kind of protected you for the last 80 years. It's a long time that we've been doing this for you. That's a long time. It's a $500 billion cost to us. It's starting to get expensive. We're thinking about pulling everybody out. However, there's only one way we'll stay there. What's that? One, the debt that we owe you, we need to split it in half. And two, moving forward, for this that we have, you need to pay us $45 billion every year. What are you talking about? That's our cost. We're passing the cost over to you for protection. Would you like that? Because China's around the corner and they're getting more powerful. No. Well, then let's figure this thing out. So this is a creative way of adding a part of getting rid of our debt or recollecting payments from all these countries we give them protection to. Guess what? Make an annual payment. What if this total becomes roughly $200 billion here that we collect, plus we take $500 billion off of our debt? What does that look like? That 2.6 officials at $2.4 trillion. Another savings in our annual expenditure. This next one is creative, and the right creative minds can come up with an idea here. Do you know the U.S. government owns roughly 28% of all the land in the U.S.? That's 640 million acres. Of the 640 million acres that they own, 10% of it, 64 million acres, is land that you can develop on. So what if we take that 64 million acres and we go to some folks and we say, hey, we want to sell this land. We want to offer you to come in here. This is all U.S. folks that we want to invest into this. And we create a program to start generating some income there. What does that look like? Who knows?
It's not just that. But what people don't realize is the land that they're preserving, if you do mining on there, trillions of dollars of commodities, gold, silver, copper, different kind of minerals. These things are all under these lands that are being protected. And they claim they're doing it in the name of climate control. It's bullshit. We shouldn't be importing from other countries these items when we have them here, right in the United States. We can go ahead and drill from ourselves and make tons of money. None of us should be paying taxes at all. As a matter of fact, we should be getting monthly payments from the government for all the crap that we're able to mine.
To be in the billions, but that's another way of pulling back and having some income that comes back to us where taxes go lower. So just now, if you look at everything that we've talked about, we went from 4.7 trillion to 2.3 trillion at 25% tariffs. If we went to 50% tariffs, that would be 75% of the 4.7 trillion that's been collected. Think about that. So that means now we're only dealing with the annual number of the 4.7 trillion being around 1.2, 1.3 trillion dollars. What does that look like?
People keep saying, well, if we raise our tariffs, then their cost of goods are going to cost more. No, what you do is you bring in those manufacturing companies that left the United States anyways during the globalist move. This is why they want free trade, so they can build companies overseas, pay less to have their items manufactured, ship them back here to the United States, and then charge us an arm and a leg and make a ton of profit. Screw that. Put these large tariffs on them. If they don't want to pay the tariffs, come back to the United States, open up your business here, and now we got more people employed, getting higher paid jobs.
Where are we at now? What can we do with that now? And then people may say, well, if you increase tariffs to 50%, items we buy may go higher. No problem, but jobs are going to come to America. We're going to get paid. So then if we eliminate taxes, well, that's pretty, we can't do that though, can we? There's many things we can do. What about Social Security? It's a big part of the cost, right? Pat, you don't want to touch Social Security. You will never get elected. I'm not running for anything. I'm not trying to get elected. But Social Security expenditure, we're talking about $1.4 trillion per year. What if we say the following? Whoever got Social Security so far, guess what? Get your payments that you paid in. We'll put the money back to you. Go do whatever you want to do. Moving forward, you're not paying no more Social Security for anybody else. Just the people that we make commitments to. Do your thing. Let's move on. 0% Social Security, because taxes are going to zero. You don't have to worry about it. We can work with that. It's a gradual decrease that we go through. Gradual decrease that we go through, and we get.
Would you rather the government control the taxes on Social Security, or would you rather trust yourself in how you invest it? Allowing them to take out Social Security is supposed to be so that in your golden years you can retire and money that they've taken from you, you start to get back. The problem is the money is almost gone. How is that possible? If you're taking out equal amounts of monies from people, everybody's monies should still be there. Why is it almost gone? Because they didn't save it like they were supposed to. They start using it for other programs and wasting our taxpayer dollars.
To a point that we create a crime if you keep causing wars. You want to keep causing war? Hey, man, listen, knock it off. We're seeing how much debt we're going into destroying average families. When you look at single-family household incomes, back in the days, one person worked. Wife stayed home with the family and kids. We were having more kids. We're having fewer kids. We're having dual income sources. Everybody has to work. Why? Just to fund wars? Do you realize a big reason why so many wives and husbands are both working, having multiple jobs, is to fund wars? Think about what I just said right there. Let me get this straight. Somebody was able to raise the kids and was able to have more kids. We're not doing that now. Why? Because we're having more wars that we have to find and fund all this other stuff. Don't you think that's a little ludicrous? I think. You know how we're down to the last $1 trillion or something like that? Oh, $1.2 trillion. You know, right now we have roughly 20 million employees working for state and federal. Think about it.
And that's what Doge and Trump is trying to eliminate. All those jobs that are redundant. All these people out there protesting, oh, Trump's eliminating jobs and firing Americans, blah, 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 blah. Because the taxpayers are paying these ridiculous salaries. They're inefficient, and they can go out and find other jobs.
20 million if we took an average salary of $75,000, because, you know, DC, those guys get paid a lot of money, but let's just say $75,000. 20 million times $75,000 is roughly $1.5 trillion. What if we fired 50% and we said, go get a job in free enterprise? What are you talking about? We can do it $1 million. Of course, some is state, some is federal, but if we get another $750 billion of coming back to the government, yes. We're almost there, folks. We're not that far off. And by the way, what if we got a little bit leaner and tighter? What would happen if we went on this crazy 10-year run like this? How much more money would be in your pocket? How would your life be if we were able to solve this for the next 10 years? What would happen with that? Is that a dream you're bought into? By the way, tear apart the entire argument. Share it with accountants. Share it with people that politically disagree with capitalists, and they trash capitalists, and they hate Elon Musk, and they hate anybody that's talking about entrepreneurship and business and all these rich, greedy people. Tear apart the argument. Would you like your taxes to be lower? Is your solution just to tax the rich? Because it ain't working. 50%, the bottom 50% of taxpayers only pay 3% of taxes. Let me say that to you one more time. The bottom 50% only pay 3%. The top 3% pay 50%. Think about what we're thinking about, numbers, give or take. The rich are paying plenty of taxes. This is about getting back to this so you and your family can become financially free one day. Because the way we're going right now, it ain't looking too good.
Here's a way to look at it. Go look at your taxes for the last 4 or 5 years. Go ahead, you should be holding them. Go in there and look at what your taxable income is. That money could be yours back in your pocket if we got rid of taxes.
Is this the end of income tax as we know it? Well, President Trump has floated this idea around and people are completely running away with it.
Instead of taxing our citizens to enrich foreign nations, we should be tariffing and taxing foreign nations to enrich our citizens.
Did you just float out the idea of getting rid of income taxes and replacing it with tariffs?
Well, okay.
Were you serious about that?
Yeah, sure, but why not?
But what most taxpayers really want to know is, well, is this an actual possibility or just smoke and mirrors?
Are you proposing eliminating all federal income taxes in a Trump-Vance administration?
Well, Donald Trump didn't propose that. He set that as an aspirational goal.
So as a licensed CPA that studies the tax code for a living, I want to help you understand this whole eliminating income tax concept and show you actual numbers of what would need to happen to realistically achieve this. All right, so realistically eliminating income tax would first require the government to fix its spending problem. So let's set the stage here by closely examining the situation we are currently in. So in 2024, the federal government spent over $6.7 trillion, with the largest spending categories being Social Security, Medicare, national defense, our interest expense, health, and so on. And on the receiving side of this, the government only received about $4.9 trillion in revenue from taxes. And 90% of that revenue came from income taxes, like individual income tax, corporate income tax, Social Security and Medicare taxes, and so on. So when we talk about eliminating income taxes, we are talking about cutting almost $5 trillion of our tax revenue in a world where we are already in a massive spending deficit and spending close to $7 trillion. And by the way, this deficit has resulted in all-time high national debt levels, with it being over $35 trillion as of the end of 2024. But still, even considering all of this, there are some realistic paths to eliminating income tax, which would require one or two things happening. Either A, we replace income tax with other forms of taxes like tariffs or consumption taxes, for example, or B, we cut government spending so much that the government does not need to assess as much income tax as it currently does. And both of these things are currently in the works right now. So let's break this down a little bit more here, starting with replacing income tax with tariffs. Okay, so if you don't know, this is not a new concept. Before income tax ever existed, tariffs were the primary source of revenue for the federal government, especially during the 18th and 19th centuries.
You know, the United States in 1870 to 1913, all tariffs, and that was the richest period in the history of the United States.
And income tax was only introduced as a temporary tax. It was only supposed to be used as an emergency measure for the US government to recover costs related to the Civil War in the 1860s. And after that war, the tax was basically eliminated. For example, just look at this chart published on the White House's website. As you can see here, the share of tariff revenue was nearly 100% of federal tax revenues until about the 1860s when the war began. And this is because the government started collecting income tax during this time period. And once they stopped collecting this tax, the share of tariff revenue increased again. But then in 1913, the 16th Amendment was passed and income tax became a permanent tax. And ever since then, we've seen income tax rates fluctuate up and down over the last century. And that brings us to where we are today, with income tax bringing in almost $5 trillion in revenue for the federal government. So when we think about replacing income tax with tariffs, the primary question becomes, well, how much tax revenue would tariffs actually bring in? Well, in 2024, the US imported about $4 trillion of goods and services. And even if we assess a 10% tariff on 100% of those imports, that would result in only $400 billion in tax revenue. And even if we ignore the fact that our imports would likely decrease due to these extra taxes and all of the other economic factors around things like inflation and so on, we would still have a large gap in tax revenue. We're talking about $5 trillion in income tax that we receive versus maybe $400 billion from tariffs, give or take. And even if the tariffs double in size, it would likely still not be enough to close the gap in tax revenue for the federal government. So what else can we do then? Well, outside of tariffs, there has also been calls to implement a national sales tax to replace income tax as well. On January 3rd of 2025, the Fair Tax Act bill was introduced to replace income tax with a national sales tax on goods and services. It proposes adding an additional 23% sales tax on purchased goods and services as a means to increase tax revenue for the federal government without taxing income. But still though, regardless of how you feel about this type of tax, critics argue that the revenue generated from a tax like this would still fall short of generating enough tax revenue, with some people saying that the tax would have to be at least 44% to generate enough revenue for the federal government. So just imagine a 44% sales tax on anything that you buy. So that's the revenue problem. But outside of finding ways to replace the income tax revenue, the government can also reduce income taxes by cutting government spending. Because ultimately, if the government spends less money, it can afford itself the ability to collect less taxes, and that is currently a priority for the Trump administration. For example, they have launched DOGE, or the Department of Government Efficiency, which is led by Elon Musk to cut unnecessary government spending, with the initial goal being to identify at least $2 trillion in savings for the federal government. And at the time of this video, they report finding over $55 billion in savings for the federal government and are still in the early stages of this process.
It's no longer $55 billion. It's now up to $170 billion that DOGE has found, saving taxpayers $1,055 per year. This video came out just 3 months ago. So in the past 3 months, it went from $55 billion to $170 billion that Elon Musk and DOGE have been able to find for savings for American taxpayers.
But even with that, there is not going to be an unlimited amount of spending that they can realistically cut. For example, in 2024, there was $4.1 trillion in mandatory spending, and 75% of that was on things like Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And then there's about $1.8 trillion in discretionary spending, but almost half of that is on defense spending alone, and the remaining $880 billion was spent on interest expense, on the record levels of national debt that we have, which would only increase if we continue to spend more money than we collect in taxes. So that's the situation. I'm all for cutting unnecessary government spending, but how much of that will we actually be able to cut? And would that be enough to realistically eliminate income tax? Eliminating income tax would likely require the government to replace that tax revenue with other forms of taxes like tariffs or consumption taxes. And remember, they would have to raise a significant amount of revenue from those taxes in order to replace income tax altogether. And even if they do, remember, we are in a spending deficit. So they would need to cut enough government spending or raise even more money from taxes in order to afford a tax cut like this. Also, it's worth mentioning that when President Trump was on the campaign trail, the specific words that he used on his campaign website regarding this concept was that as tariffs on foreign producers go up, taxes on American workers, families, and businesses can come down. Again, down. It did not say eliminate taxes altogether, but it says that it could come down, which is consistent with his current tax priorities, which involve cutting taxes on tips, Social Security, overtime pay, and extending various tax cuts on individuals, investors, and businesses.
So it's going to be a gradual situation, little by little. But it does no good for Trump to find ways to cut taxes if he can't do something about all this frivolous waste of money. And that's exactly what Trump is trying to do. I'd rather pay zero income taxes and enjoy my own money that I work hard for than allow the government to spend it. You guys let me know what you think. I look forward to hearing from you. Can we find a way to pay zero taxes? I think we can. Unfortunately, we only have Trump for 4 years. You got to hope that the person that follows him continues this process so that we eventually get there to where we're paying zero in taxes. Anyways, that's it for now. I'm out.